Equations of a circle. So equations of a circle are in the form of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so what's going on here? So first of all, the center of the circle is h comma k. So these numbers that are being subtracted from x and y make the center of the circle. Then they are both in parentheses squared. So you have an x plus or minus something squared, because the plus or minus, we'll get into it, changes the plus or minus of the center, plus, it's always a plus right there, y plus or minus something squared equals, and then that's the radius squared, so you know how far it is from the center to the edge. So the radius is just r, so this is going to be r squared. So like if the center was 3, this would go 9, because 3 squared is 9. If the radius was 5, this would say equals 25, because that's 5 squared. So the parts of the equation tell you information about the circle. You can also go the other way around. If you know the center and the radius, you can then write the equation. So we're going to go both directions for today's notes. So let's say we had a circle whose center was at 2, 5 and had a radius of 3. So we start off with x, and then it's going to be minus 2 squared, because we do the minus the x value, and then plus y minus the y value, which is 5 squared. So there's our center, our 2, 5, equals the radius squared. So 3 squared is 9. Now you can go in either direction. If we had this equation, we could have figured out this information. With that information, we can write the equation. Either way, you can also graph the circle. So first I'm going to find the center. So my center is at 2, 5. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to graph my center. My circle is going to be a little off here. My radius is 3. So from my center, going up, down, left, and right, I'm going to count out 3 in each direction. 1, 2, 3 this direction. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's about there, okay? All you need to do then is kind of sketch kind of what the circle would look like. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there is your circle. If you know the center and you know the radius, you can get 4 dots in each direction, the one in each direction, to make that radius, because here's my radius of 3, and I have my circle. So going the other direction, if we were given the equation, like x plus 4 squared plus y minus 10 squared equals 16, the center is negative 4, because you'll notice that there's a plus sign here. That means that the minus is built in, which means we must have had another negative, because 2 negatives make a positive, comma, and this is just 10, because the minus sign is part of the equation. So the radius is going to be the square root of what that is. So to undo a square, we square root it, and the square root is 4. So again, we could graph this. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm going to count these by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Otherwise, my graph's going to be a little funny. These are also going to be by 2 so that it is even. 6, 8. So negative 4, comma 10. So comma 10. And if I went 4 in each direction, counting by 2s, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, there is my circle. Okay? So if we had a center at 0, 4, we would have x minus 0 squared, so that's your x coordinate, plus y minus 4 squared, there's that, equals, now the area is 100 pi. So let's think about this. The area of a circle is pi r squared. So somehow this area came from a pi r squared. Well, if we kind of start solving for it, I'm just going to divide both sides by pi, and we now have that r squared equals 100, which must mean that r equals 10, because it's the square root. But in our equation, we want it to equal r squared, so it's just going to equal 100. We're not going to graph that one. Okay, the center is at 1, 2, and it is tangent to x equals 5. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's just start off with the beginning of our equation. We have x minus 1 squared, that's the x value, plus y minus 2 squared, that's the y value, equals. Now we need to think about what it means to be tangent to something. So if you had a circle that was centered at 1, 2, so right there, and it was tangent to x equals 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means that there's this line that the circle is sitting up against. A tangent line basically means that it is crossing the circle at one point on its edge. So the circle is kind of like sitting on it, right? Well, how far away is the line x equals 5 from the center of the circle? It is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. From the x value to the x equals 5, it is 4 away, which means that the radius must be 4. So the center is 4 away from x equals 5. So what is 4 squared? 16. So there's our equation. Okay, in this equation right here, last one, if we look at the equation itself, the center must be at -9, because it says plus, so there must be like a 2 negatives there, comma, -8, because again, this says plus, so it must be minus a -8. And the radius is whatever the square root of 20 is. The square root of 20 is not a whole number, so you can just leave it as the square root of 20. If you were graphing this, you could figure out its approximate decimal to help you graph it, but if you don't need to, then you don't have to worry about it.